Welcome back. And now we're here to talk about question 2, which has to do with how to solve corporate money in politics. And we're joined with someone from American Promise. Wambui Gatheru is the Citizen Empowerment Coordinator. Thank you for coming all the way out from Boston to talk about question 2.
My pleasure.
And can you tell me why you're supporting question 2, what it's going to do, and just give folks a background, because I think this is the one that folks have heard the least about.
Yes. So question 2 is a question that has to do with limiting the amount of big money that is in our political system. If you think about lots of the issues that we're facing today, like violence in our communities because of guns, or really high education costs to go to college, it kind of comes down to the amount of big money being poured into elections, influencing policy, and ultimately not allowing the people to be heard. Instead, it's allowing the corporations and really a very small percentage of the population, their views are represented in our politics, as opposed to the everyday normal people. So question 2 is about voting big money out of politics, and this comes out of the 2010 Citizens United decision, which basically allowed unlimited amounts of corporate money to be poured into elections with really no oversight by Congress, which is super crazy and very scary, and honestly one of the most undemocratic pieces of law that has ever happened. And so in 2010, that decision was passed, and because of that, lots of states have come out in opposition of that legislation. And so because of that, there has been a movement to actually pass a constitutional amendment to overturn this decision and bring this, make this basically something that is founded in the cornerstone of our law, that says that big money should not have an influence in our political system, and that the people should be represented again. So 19 states have actually already been in favor of this amendment.
And passed something similar to a yes on 2.
Exactly. And actually Massachusetts passed legislation through the legislature, so not through ballot initiative, for this amendment. So we are actually one of the 19 states already.
Okay.
But the reason that we decided to do this ballot initiative again in 2018 is to bring this issue back to the forefront. Unfortunately, when this issue was passed in Massachusetts in 2012, it's kind of fallen back on the wayside. And this is to bring, again, awareness to the issue, to bring the message back to the people and have the people vote. And so question 2 will put Massachusetts again strongly in favor of this amendment to overturn Citizens United and other Supreme Court decisions that have allowed corporations to have human rights as opposed to normal people, and will basically bring the power back to the people. This question will also create a first-in-the-nation Citizens Commission that will study the effects of big money in politics and make recommendations to Congress on how to move forward in passing this amendment. We need 38 states, so we're halfway there, and we know that Massachusetts is an incredible place to have this energy reignited.
And so we'll get to continue to be a leader by kind of showing that pathway to getting this done.
Exactly.
And what would you say to the opponents of question 2? Why would folks be in opposition to this? I think this makes a lot of sense.
It does.
We want our individual voices to have power, and the more money that is in politics, it dilutes our individual voices.
Right. So the opposition claims that supporting yes on 2, question 2, is actually an attack on free speech, and this has to do with a previous Supreme Court decision called Buckley v. Vallejo that basically gave corporations human rights. And because they have human rights, they are entitled to exercising their freedom of speech in the First Amendment. And so if you think about that in layman's terms, it basically says that corporations are people, and because of that, they have free speech. And as we all know, corporations are not people. If a corporation was a person, as my father likes to say, then they would be able to ride a bicycle. And obviously they can't. So because of that, that's what the opposition is saying, that voting yes on question 2 is an attack on free speech.
And corporations are full of people, so those people can move with their feet and their dollars to have their voices heard.
Right.
So this is really just making sure that we're all on level footing. And we weren't a part of the congressional CD3 race for Nikki Sankis' seat, but we saw how much money was poured into that race for those dozen and change candidates. And that was a major complaint that I heard, is like, there's so much money being spent on this that could go to so many other places.
Exactly.
And so how do we make sure that we have more integrity in our elections so that everyone's voice gets to be heard?
Exactly. And when money is the main factor in an election, the deciding factor, it doesn't come down to the votes, which is crazy, which is absolutely undemocratic. And on top of that, when candidates are mostly just listening to their big donors, they're not taking the time to listen to their constituents, to talking to their constituents. So voting yes on question 2 basically just places Massachusetts in favor of, once again, representing the people and putting the people back in charge and not profits.
Well, thank you so much for coming all the way out from Boston
My
to talk
pleasure.
about this question, and good luck in the next couple of weeks of spreading the word.
Yes.
And we'll be back in a little bit with question 3.